Right now, though, we get things rolling here with our first guest of the evening. He is the new head football coach of the Heritage High School Hurricanes in Newport News. He's coached in the Peninsula District before, and we say hello and congrats to Scott Woodlief here on ESPN Radio 94.1. Coach, thank you for the time tonight. What's life been like for a new head football coach here in August without games to get ready for at the end of the month or the start of next month?
Well, they're really busy for me since I've just been named the new head coach, but not being on the field and not being able to smell the grass is not a good feeling.
I can imagine, and then with this pandemic, all the social unrest in our world, so many different things have been going on here. It's been very tricky and difficult to navigate these last several weeks and months here. But before we get into what drew you to the job at Heritage, tell us about your background. For those that are unfamiliar with Scott Woodlief, you have roamed the sidelines before in the 757. Give us the mini biography, if you will, from your high school days, college days, up until you taking this job here at Heritage this week.
Okay, I'll try to make this brief because I have a long history of moving around. So I graduated from Kecoughtan High School in 1982. I went on from there and went to Coffeyville Junior College in Kansas. I stayed there for a year, and then I ended up transferring to Ferrum Junior College. That was back in the 80s when Ferrum was a junior college. Was a junior college. Now it's a Division III school. I left there, played for Hank Norton there, left there and ended up going to Elon. Stayed there during their spring ball, and I ended up leaving Elon, coming back to the Newport News Apprentice School, and trying to earn a little bit of money and playing at the same time, learning a trade, and trying to better myself as an older person. And I played there, football, basketball, and baseball at the Newport News Apprentice School. I left the apprentice school, and I just couldn't get football out of my blood, and I played with the Norfolk Neptunes, for 2 or 3 years, and I ended up leaving the Norfolk Neptunes. I played for the Peninsula Pirates, and I think I played there 2 or 3 years, just trying to, continue, trying to make it in the Canadian League or trying to, make some NFL career. And I ended up leaving there, and I ended up playing with the Poseidons. And after I finished the Poseidons, I played semi-pro for about 10 years. And ended up having a child in 1990, had my daughter in 1992. I had to figure out exactly what I needed to do. And Coach Newsom called me and asked me to come on his staff at Kecoughtan High School. And that's when I started my coaching career in 1993. Started there in 93, stayed at Kecoughtan High School until 1998. And I left there in 98. I went to Gloucester High School up underneath Ben Boyd, stayed there, was there at Gloucester for 3 years. Ben stayed there for a year. I ended up getting my first head coaching job in 1999. Stayed at Gloucester for a couple of years. Had an opportunity to go back to the Newport News Apprentice School and coach Division III football. I thought that was a great opportunity. The guy, Phil Gennaro, he was the head football coach at Apprentice School at that time. I played with Coach Gennaro at the Newport News Apprentice School, played there for 4 years. Coached with him for 4 years. And I had an opportunity. My son became a ninth grader, and I really wanted to have the father-son relationship with him. So I applied at Loudoun County, never been in Loudoun County before. I applied at Potomac Falls High School, and I ended up landing that job as the head football coach there. I stayed at Potomac Falls. My mother came into a little bit of a dilemma, and I ended up moving back home. I got the job at Kecoughtan High School in 2010, stayed at Kecoughtan from 2010 to 2012, and I married a woman up in Northern Virginia, so I ended up moving back up to Northern Virginia. I coached in Prince William County at Forest Park High School, stayed there for a year. I was the assistant head coach, offensive coordinator there. I left Forest Park and ended up getting a head job at Edison High School in Fairfax County. Stayed at Fairfax County for a year, left Fairfax County, went to Kettle Run in Gainesville, Virginia, and I ended up going back home. My mother, had a little bit of complications again. Went home and took care of her. Last year I was at Oakton High School as the offensive line coach, and saw the opportunity at Heritage this fall and applied for that, and now we're here today where we are. That's about as fast as I can make it.
Well, there's nothing many about that biography, but you have a wealth of experience and knowledge. And Coach, of course, you did well at Kecoughtan. For you there, had a winning season. You had Gloucester. I mean, people don't look at your longest win streak, I think, at Gloucester the program had until 17 years later, which was a few seasons ago when they had a 5-game winning streak and made the playoffs. But you hit on two things that struck me there: Newport News Apprentice School, playing and coaching. Some athletes these days will scoff, that's all I'm getting. But that's a really, I imagine, valuable time in your life, both from the playing standpoint and coaching perspective as well. What did you gain from your times there?
I tell you, that was probably the best move that I ever made as a coach. Really? I ended up leaving, high school, and I was up underneath, Coach Newsom, which was a really, really good coach. And he's went on and he's done great things as a college coach, running his own program now, and at Emory and Henry. And I was, ended up being able to coach with the guy I played for. And I tell you, I just learned so much football there. He ended up bringing on the offensive line coach at William and Mary. I spent a lot of time with him, and I tell you, I think it brought me to where I was, as a coach. And Coach Gennaro told me, if you really want to learn football, Coach, you need to learn the offensive line. And I was always a quarterback. I was always that guy in the backfield. I was always a receiver, defensive back, free safety. I wasn't big enough to play the line. I wasn't never in the trenches. So when I had that opportunity and ended up learning from, the coach at William and Mary, and, he's later passed. And, I'm just fortunate to be able to be in that situation and be able to learn from him and Coach Gennaro, and they've really guided me into who I am today.
Talking with Scott Woodlief, he's the new head football coach of the Heritage Hurricanes. So kind of join us here on the 757 at 6 on ESPN Radio 94.1. And you mentioned the name Kurt Newsom, who's always near and dear to our hearts. He's been on the show before. Emory and Henry Wasps coach. He coached obviously at Virginia Tech. James Madison, we know he did at Kecoughtan, the job he did that was so outstanding. And I imagine even to this day, a lot of the things and principles, philosophies that you use are a direct reflection of him in ways, right?
He's my buddy. He's one of my best friends, and he was a mentor to me as a coach, and he's 10 numbers away. So if I ever need to call Coach and get some advice and get some some mentorship, still he's always been there. Picked up the phone and answered the questions that I've had.
Well, you mentioned coaching last year at Oakton as an offensive line coach, and you've been in various places, whether it be here in Hampton Roads, Northern Virginia, you name it. It's odd to take a job in August, and it's odd to do it during a pandemic here. So what really attracted you to the job at Heritage in Newport News here in 2020?
The job came available, in early February, and I applied then, and, there had been some issues and situations there. And then Mr. Garner ended up calling me back again and offered me the position. And Heritage is a unique job. I honestly feel it's probably, if it's not the best job, it's very close to being the best job that I've ever had as the head coach. Even though I'm coming into a school that in 2000 they were very successful, won the state championship, had a team that nobody could touch. Then they had Coach Massenberg was there, and he was doing a great job there, and he ended up leaving and going into an administrationship and kind of left Heritage out there, kind of dangling on that limb that, was very, very fragile. And they had a guy that came in last year and, did the best he could do and worked with the kids and, filled the position. And when I saw it was open, man, I just, I was very happy to see it. I knew it could get me back home and into my roots. And that's why I applied for it.
Well, and you mentioned that 2000 run with Michael Johnson and Darrell Blackstock going undefeated, beating Hampton resoundingly in the playoffs, which hardly ever happens. We know what a storied program the Crabbers are, and they just lost in the last couple of months. Their coach from that run, the late, great John Quillen, who passed away here. And you take over a team, Scott, that was 1-9, but they've been good before. Do you study last year's film, and is it more about hunkering down on that footage, what needs to be corrected, or rather more about instilling confidence in them, finding out what you have and starting anew?
Well, it's fortunate that you're able to go back and look at huddle and see what the kids were doing last year, and just kind of watching how they move around. I'm telling you, I'm coming into Heritage, and I've been through it. I've started programs that were, I've been at some programs that were rebuilding, and I always think that you need to start from scratch. I think you need to start from, 3-point stance to learning techniques to fundamentals of how to tackle, and that's where we're going to start. We're going to know the kids, and we need to get to know them, and they need to get to know us, and we'll move along as we move. And the COVID's going to cause some problems, but we're going to get through that, and we're going to see the kids, and we need to we need to bond as a family. It's the 5,800 family at Heritage High School, and we need to instill the old days and the old school ways at Heritage, and I believe the kids are excited, and they wanted to know where their head coach was from and who their head coach is, and I'm a lot more excited than they are to meet them.
Lastly, Coach, and look forward to getting you back on the program sometime in the very near future here. And in a lot of ways, the COVID has you fortunate from this regard. You're not starting in 3 weeks here. Football, it looks like if we do have a football season, the VHSL announced here in the last week or two that it's going to be the first contest date would be March the 1st, and the finish would be May the 1st. So it buys you some time here to learn them and kind of bond. But what's your approach on it as you go into kind of a new situation here and a new time here with football in the spring potentially, and how you go about it now?
Well, it's not having this, it's not having the summer conditioning anymore. Now it's dealing with virtual learning, and when can we have the kids, and when can we have some equipment out there? When can the football come out there? That's the decisions that they need to make and be able to let us coaches know, and then we can move on from there. But my plan is to listen to what my athletic director and Dr. Hunter tells me, our new principal there, and whatever they say, and let me know what I can do. I can go on to the field, and after virtual learning, it's kind of like now, instead of having football practice, you're having conditioning practice. It's just a different time of the year.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for the time here on the program. Best wishes to you on the new journey there with the Heritage Hurricanes, and we look forward to some football, hopefully there in the spring at John B. Todd Stadium in Newport News. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me on, and go Heritage.